Welcome. In just a moment, discover the miraculous nativity story of Jesus' birth, a moment that changed the world forever. Please like, comment, and subscribe to join us for more inspiring Bible stories.
In the beginning of Luke's Gospel, we read about Jesus' birth, and this is the story that we call the Nativity. It's important to understand that the Gospels were written for Jewish readers, so there are many Jewish customs and traditions that are alluded to in the Nativity story. And one of them is something called the census. Every 5 years, the Roman Empire did a census, a head count of everyone within the empire. But when they went to tax everyone, they knew how much money to collect from them. Joseph and Mary had traveled from Nazareth down to Bethlehem, because Joseph was a descendant of King David, and Bethlehem was considered the hometown of David. So every 5 years he would travel there for the census. But this time there was a twist. The census was being conducted by an official named Quirinius. Quirinius was the same guy who was in charge of the census 14 years earlier when Jesus was born. Let me repeat that. It says here that when Quirinius was the governor, that's when Jesus was born. But if that's true, then how could Jesus be 14 years old and still living in Nazareth? If he was born in Bethlehem, why didn't his family move back there after the census? Remember, they only traveled to Bethlehem once every 5 years for this census. So, when we look at the original language of this text, the word for governor can also mean military commander. So it is possible that Quirinius was the military commander when there was a census going on, and that there was some sort of conflict or war going on. May have been stationed in Bethlehem for that reason. It's another detail that makes this story even more fascinating. You see, the Gospel of Luke says that when Quirinius was governor, that's when Jesus was born. But Luke wrote his Gospel about 60 AD. At that point, everyone knew that Jesus was 33 years old, which means he had to have been born in 07 BC. There's a problem with that dating because between 07 BC and 04 BC, there was no census. In fact, the next census after 07 BC didn't happen until 14 AD, so Luke couldn't have possibly been right. In 1958, a Syrian newspaper reported that an inscription was found on an old stone that said, quote, "To the memory of Quirinius Aurelius, who carried out the census throughout the extent of the empire in the days of the donkey Emperor Augustus." And then underneath it said, quote, "He performed this task again during the governorship of Publius Soter." If we go back to Luke's Gospel, he says that Quirinius was governor when Jesus was born. Well, now we have two inscriptions that say that Quirinius conducted two censuses, one under Augustus and another one under Publius. Now, historians debate the authenticity of these inscriptions, but there is no debating the fact that there were two censuses during the time of Jesus' birth. That's why Jesus' birth is such a big deal. The angel told Joseph in a dream that he needed to travel to Bethlehem because the Messiah was going to be born there. And when they got there, they couldn't find any room at the inn. They couldn't find any place to stay. Had to settle for a stable, an animal's stable. Here's the amazing thing. Every year, pilgrims would come from all over the empire to attend the Feast of the Tabernacles in Jerusalem. One of the requirements for that feast was that they had to bring an offering, a blood sacrifice. So every 5 years during the census, when pilgrims would come into Jerusalem, they would bring their animals for sacrifice. That every 5 years during the census, there would be a massive amount of blood. Sacrifices happening in Jerusalem. During the time of Jesus' birth, there was a census, and we know that there was extra bloodshed during that time. Because the angel said that the blood sacrifice had to be made because of Jesus' birth. The reason we celebrate Christmas on December is because the early church decided that this was the most logical time for Jesus' birth, lined up with the timing of the census and the timing of the Feast of Tabernacles, when there would be a massive amount of blood sacrifices taking place. And it all pointed forward to the ultimate sacrifice that Jesus would make on the cross.